From our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. First tonight, the heavily debated proposal to put a cable car on Coonamble, Mount Wellington has been rejected by the state's planning tribunal. Those against the project have declared the concept dead after being found to fail biodiversity and noise standards.
A grand plan marred by controversy for years, the cable car has been stopped in its tracks.
I can't believe how overwhelmed we are. Such a good result, something we've waited for so long. So there's relief, there's happiness, there's a huge amount of emotion, yeah.
It's an idea that's long divided Hobart residents, with Tasmania's Civil and Administrative Tribunal hitting back at an appeal attempt.
Aboriginal people have protected Coonamble for thousands of years, so we are overjoyed to hear today's announcement that Coonamble will remain protected today.
Finding the initial move was the right one by Hobart City Council to refuse a permit, upholding 18 of the 26 contested reasons for refusal.
The cable car is dead. I'd say 18 grounds of refusal is the end. It's not as though it was a close call. It's been resounding.
Environmental warriors claiming a victory, fighting the campaign to keep Coonamble, Mount Wellington pure.
It's up to Premier Rockcliffe to consider the weight of public opinion, now this tribunal finding, and simply legislate to keep cable cars illegal.
But the state government is putting the ball in the developers' court to decide if they'll take the matter to the Supreme Court.
As a government, we've always supported a cable car and the benefits that it would deliver for the people of not just Hobart but for Tasmania.
Mount Wellington Cableway Company was behind the bid, today expressing disappointment at the decision, saying it will take time to fully consider its position, now seeking advice from legal and planning advisors.
This proposal would have been a scar on the city forever.
Advocates say it's clear the company has an obligation to abandon its proposal. Whether this really is the end of the cable car remains to be seen.
I think if the investors have any sense, they will walk away.
Grace Evans, 7 Tasmania News.
A Tasmanian woman living in her car has been taken off the public housing wait list after failing to respond to an email. The shocking claim comes as the opposition calls for the government to conduct an audit into how many others have been kicked to the curb.
Cleaning houses for a living but unable to find one for herself, Sharona and her 11-year-old goddaughter have spent the last 8 months sleeping in a car.
To lay down a back seat and put my goddaughter into her sleeping bag through the night is just horrible.
Applying for public housing back in 2019, Sharona had no idea she'd been booted from the list after failing to respond to just one email.
I'd believed up until yesterday I had been waiting for 4.5 years. The feeling I got, it just sunk in my stomach. It was like I didn't exist.
If you're experiencing homelessness, there's probably a really good chance that keeping an eye on emails every day isn't going to be your priority.
Now there's concern for others unknowingly in the same boat.
If they have been cancelled off that waiting list, does that mean that all that time that they were waiting, they therefore go to the bottom of the list and they've got to start again?
There's currently a 90-week wait for social housing. Labor questioning just how accurate this figure really is.
We have 4,500 people that we know that at the moment that are sitting on that housing waiting list. We also have a lot of people that have dropped off because they've given up.
The government says, though, it is taking measures to ease Tasmania's escalating housing crisis. More needs to be done.
It is unacceptable to have some of the situations that I become aware of on a regular basis.
Labor now calling for an audit to keep this from happening to anyone else. Brianna Boylan, 7 Tasmania News.
Next Tuesday marks a significant moment in Tasmanian history, with a formal apology to victim survivors of child sexual abuse to be made in Parliament. While the apology will deliver closure for some, many others have expressed mixed feelings in the lead-up. Some are even going so far as to boycott the event. A warning, some people may find some details in this story distressing.
Tasmania's greatest shame is the hurt it caused children. Next week, they will receive a state apology.
For generations, they've let us down, and how are they going to ensure that doesn't continue? So actions speak louder than their apology.
Victim survivor Katrina Munting will be attending and supporting others. She's expecting to be highly emotional.
I want the Premier to see that. I want him to feel that pressure, that pain from myself and other survivors.
The apology will be an important moment for some victim survivors, but others have mixed feelings. A group is boycotting the event, calling it tokenistic. Azra is registered for a seat, but she's unsure if she'll go.
I've had to do months and years of therapy and medication, and I just need an end in sight, and this isn't the end.
She says many abused in out-of-home care feel daunted by how formal it will be.
They're not going. They wouldn't even know what to do if they got into Parliament House. I'm petrified of walking into Parliament House.
This apology was announced in the wake of shocking evidence heard in the Commission of Inquiry public hearings. But the work isn't done yet, with full findings handed down next year. Family members of Zoe Duncan are among those who say the timing of this apology fails to respect that process.
I think it is really hard to make a formal apology to victim survivors, families and the community when you aren't actually sure what you are apologising for.
So far, the date of the apology has been moved twice. First set for the date of pedophile James Jeffrey Griffin's death, then the anniversary of a victim's death in custody.
I think early consultation with victim survivors and the families of those who have suffered would have prevented this sense of distrust in what the formal apology is trying to achieve.
Some say it should have come after stronger action was taken in risk sites, like the closure of Ashley.
I question the meaningfulness of an apology being made for those exact behaviours when there is ongoing risk.
The Premier said in response, it is never too early to say sorry. Victim survivors have waited long enough and deserve an apology now. The government has consulted with a smaller group of victim survivors and advocates about how it should take place and made some changes, such as live streaming outside. The apology is a significant moment in the state's history. That's why it's so important it's done as well as it can be, to provide a small amount of closure. But the past can never be undone.
It will all help to make life livable or easier, but it will never take it away. What's done is done, and we live that hell every day.
Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
And if you or anyone you know needs help or this story has caused distress, contact the Sexual Assault Support Service on 1800 697 877. One of the state's most complicated murder trials in recent times is nearing a close, with the 5 accused in the Bobby Medcraft case still waiting to hear their fate. The Defence Counsel for Cody, Christopher Sheen addressing the jury in closing statements, arguing the accused acted in self-defence when inflicting the fatal chop. The Burnie father of 2 was murdered in March 2020 after bleeding out from the leg injury. In the trial of Mr Sheen, the jury heard the deceased threatened to stab him earlier in the night, prompting the accused to arm himself with a weapon. Closing statements will continue into next week. Meanwhile, Tasmania Police has made further arrests in relation to the murder of a man in Georgetown late last month. A 50-year-old woman and a 58-year-old man have been charged with being an accessory after the fact to murder. The pair, both from West Launceston, will appear in court tonight. COVID cases are on the rise, with more than 900 infections emerging in the past week and 14 people being treated for the virus in hospital. Experts say the majority of cases are of the BA5 variant, but that several sub-strains have been identified in the community.
This is very likely to be the next wave of COVID that's going to come through. It's not something that was surprising to us. We've said all along that we anticipated a wave of infection towards the end of 2022.
The Department of Health says the Coral Princess cruise ship docking in Burnie on Saturday has a number of cases on board, with those infected confined to their cabins. Tasmania Police is reviewing its process around evidence collection after members of the drug squad were blasted as reckless by a Supreme Court judge. Justice Tamara Jago found that parcels containing drugs which were posted to a Devonport address in 2017 were illegally intercepted and can't be admitted in court.
Our government wants to make sure that drug traffickers are put behind bars and any missed opportunities there is disappointing, not just for our government but for our community.
It's unclear if the case will be pursued. Tassels' deal with Canadian firm Cook Aquaculture is all but done after a resounding vote by shareholders of more than 96% for the acquisition to forge ahead. Comes a day after local environmental groups raised concerns about the new company's track record. The scheme will head to the courts next week for the final tick of approval. The Teachers' Union has defended the impact of planned strike action on Year 11 and 12 exams. Next Wednesday afternoon, teachers will walk off the job in the middle of a bargaining dispute. The Education Minister has criticised the union for planning action during exam period.
Our 11 and 12 sector, if they are involved in exams, will not be taking part in the action. These people are so passionate and have worked so hard to provide their students the knowledge they need for the exams.
The Education Department is still considering its plans for Wednesday. Small business owners are now able to access financial and mental health counselling. Pharmacist Claire Sutton suffered water damage to her Belrive store last year and, like many small business owners, was hit hard during the pandemic.
And I have realised during that period of time how involved I am in my business. It's sort of part of my personality, and that has put quite a large strain on my life and my relationships outside of work.
It comes at a crucial time for the small business community who have been weathering the perfect storm of debt collection and debt challenges.
In last week's budget, $15 million was provided to fund the Small Business Debt Helpline and the new Access Mental Health program. Construction on Marinus isn't expected to begin until 2025, but the effort is beginning to build the workforce for billions of dollars of green construction projects. Thousands of workers will be needed, with regional areas set to see the biggest boost from the push towards renewable energy.
Promising a renewed energy for the northwest. Building the state's largest ever infrastructure project might still be years away, but work opportunities have already begun.
Since we've started working with Marinus, I've been able to bring on an extra 4 people into my team directly, and then one of the contractors has also been able to add an extra 3 people on in the immediate term.
Sean Van Steel is overseeing offshore operations for the $3.8 billion scheme, and he's bringing on local workers to get the job done. The major commitment making it easier for him to plan ahead.
A project like Marinus Link gives me the confidence that there will be work into the future for my team, and we can grow that from there.
With Marinus needing 1,400 workers at the height of construction, the state government is scrambling to find enough workers.
We have a pipeline of work for not just years but for decades to come.
It's not just the northwest set to win big in the renewable jobs boom, with major projects also in the works in the state's west.
Half a dozen of the power stations will be upgraded with some $300 million of investment.
It's hoped other local industries will see positive flow-on effects.
It really will accelerate the development of our advanced manufacturing hub.
250 kilometres of undersea cable will begin right here at Haybridge. The 2 connectors, each almost 25 centimetres thick, will form a vital link between Victoria and Tasmania.
We are actively working to give Tasmanians the best opportunity to participate in this project.
The buzz surrounding renewable energy only growing. Annie Green, 7 Tasmania News.
The opening of Launceston's Basin pool is being pushed back due to recent flooding. Council is waiting for high flows still running through the gorge to recede before the summer attraction reopens to the public. The pool is usually ready to go from the November long weekend. The council is aiming to open it by Christmas. 6 Tasmanian artists will be heading to Paris next year as part of the university's annual Rosamond McCulloch Studio Residency program. Among them, a young honours student whose puppetry techniques saw her receive the first Mary Maxwell Travel Scholarship worth $10,000.
And that's for 2 months to travel to Paris, to be in the studio and to continue the work and their creative projects.
Paris has a very rich culture for puppetry. There's a lot of puppet theatres there, a lot of practitioners who I can learn from through workshops and through experiencing them performing.
The residency has been running since 1991, helping more than 150 local artists take their creative abilities abroad. A Meander Valley quintet is putting sibling rivalry aside for one day in a decade. All 5 brothers and sisters in the Johnston family are, for a short time, all in their 80s. Now young Podge has joined the club.
Meet the Johnstons. There's 86-year-old Graham, nicknamed Gray. Neil's 88, he's known as Chummy. 82-year-old Noel's called Chops. And Brian's the baby of the bunch, just turned 80, call him Podge. Then there's the eldest, 89-year-old Joan. Her hands are too full to worry about a nickname.
Did you feel a bit of responsibility to keep these 4 boys in line?
Oh, yeah, especially these 2. but then they got taller than me and I lost out.
At this flash in time, they're all in their 80s, sparking a cause for celebration.
We used to have a bit of a fight of a Friday night who was going to get in the bath first.
Probably worthwhile given the boys were keen woodchoppers and footballers. Chops Noel even played a season at Latrobe when Daryl Baldock was captain. But his real idols were his brothers and sister.
I don't know how it would have got on without them sometimes.
Even after 8 delightful decades, the siblings remain as close as ever.
I don't reckon there's many families of 5 that have all turned over 80 and still alive over 80.
Maybe stirring each other up was the secret after all for the Johnstons. Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
Good evening. A mostly fine and sunny day across the state today, except in the west and south where there were a few showers. The top of 21 today was recorded at Launceston and the Friendly Beaches, Hobart and Burnie 18 and 20 in Devonport. St Helens also 20 today, 18 at Wynyard, Lowhead, Bushy Park and Maria Island all 17, 16 on King Island and at Grove, Flinders Island 15, Strahan 14 and 11 degrees the high for Lyawini. An onshore flow pushing low-level cloud over the west and south of Tasmania today. Here we see speckled cloud over southeastern Australia and the south coast of Western Australia and South Australia. Isolated thunderstorms are about the top end and Cape York Peninsula. Tomorrow, a large high-pressure system moves slowly over southeastern Australia. A cold front brushes the southwest of WA and a low over northern WA extends a trough southwards. Now a look at coastal conditions. West to southwesterly winds 15 to 25 knots, reaching up to 30 knots about the southeast in the early morning. Winds tending west to northwesterly 10 to 20 knots during the day. Seas mostly below 2 metres. A strong wind warning for the lower east, southeast and southwest coasts, and minor flood warning still current for the Macquarie, Meander, North and South Esk rivers. A partly cloudy day tomorrow in Hobart, 19 at Huonville, cloudy there, and Campania, partly cloudy, 18. Sunny in Launceston, 21, 19 at Devonport, sunny, and Georgetown, also sunny, 20. 18 and partly cloudy in Burnie, 15 at Strahan, cloudy, partly cloudy for Wynyard, 19. A partly cloudy day ahead for St Helens, 17, Swansea, 17, mostly sunny, and cloudy at Port Arthur, also 17. The UV is 8 tomorrow in the very high range and the sun will rise at 5:54 a.m. A fine day ahead on Saturday apart from possible showers about the west and far south. Fine on Sunday apart from isolated light showers during the afternoon, and Monday fine apart from isolated showers during the afternoon also. 20 in Adelaide tomorrow, partly cloudy, 21 in Sydney, a shower or two clearing, and a sunny day ahead in Broome, 29 degrees. Right now it's partly cloudy across the state, Hobart 15, Launceston 18 and Devonport 15. And other than a bit of cloud about, it looks like a mostly fine day ahead for much of the state tomorrow, Kim.
I like it a lot. Thank you, Carmen. That is all your news for now. We'll be back later with updates. Thanks for joining us tonight. Good night.